It's the 3 on PLAXtv.
Yeah. What's good, y'all? It's your boy PLAX, and I am back with another episode of the 3 on PLAXtv. And in this episode, I will be discussing Kelsey Plum's viewpoints on expansion teams in the WNBA. Now, if you guys have been on PLAXtv before, you know that I have been a very hard advocate, not just for the WNBA, but for expansion in the WNBA. I've been really pushing for that. That's been something I think I did a 2-part video series on the WNBA expanding and how beneficial it would be, and different places that they could expand to for like bigger markets or clout, I guess you could say, you know, just different things on the WNBA expanding. Kelsey Plum, a guard. I believe she's a guard. I think Kelsey Plum's a 2 guard. I feel like she like a small forward 2 guard. I could be wrong, but I kind of put her in that type of realm. But the guard for the Las Vegas Aces, Kelsey Plum, brought me to light on a couple things, though. I do still think expansion would be great for the WNBA, but her perspective altered that a bit. Before I get into what she said, I will say some of the points she was making, although I agree with them, I felt like expansion now would benefit those things. In my opinion, I'm gonna get into what she said. I was kind of on the edge, but she did make me think more on the other issues that the WNBA has that need to be fixed before we get to expansion. That was more so her point. Basically, they asked her how she felt about potential expansion coming soon in the WNBA, and she said that's great, but there's other issues that need to be addressed first before we even mention expansion in the WNBA. So one of the biggest things she got into was charter flights. The WNBA still doesn't have chartered flights like the NBA does. Well, the NBA has like private jets and private planes for their teams. But the WNBA players, a lot of teams have to pay out of their own pocket to get to and from games. Which sounds outrageous when you say it out loud. A professional sports team in America have to pay to get to and from games is kind of crazy. But she said that's a bigger issue than expansion that needs to be looked at more before expansion is talked about. And I agree with that. I agree with that to a certain extent because, like I said, that's insane that pro sports teams need to pay out of their pocket in a league where they're not even getting paid a lot to begin with. Like superstars get paid, more than the average person. It's substantially more than the average person, but I think the average salary in the WNBA is like $65,000 to $72,000 a year, which isn't terrible. But it's not great either, especially when you got to pay for transportation to different cities on could possibly be a day-to-day basis for an entire summer out of your own pocket. The average person can't do that every week and still sustain a comfortable life. You see what I'm saying? So you're kind of putting the average WNBA player in the hole. So superstars could probably do that and it not be a big deal. Like the Candace Parkers and the Aja Wilsons and Diana Taurasi's, because they're making a lot of money. They're making $250,000+ a year. But a player making $60,000, $65,000, even $70,000, $75,000 a year, that's going to hurt their pockets bad. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with that to a certain extent. Salary was a huge thing, which is something that I've talked about before. WNBA players should be paid more because for what they do. The reason they aren't, obviously, is because the WNBA isn't as big as the NBA. They don't have the same amount of viewership, even though viewership is going up. Market sharing and TV deals and all that stuff, it just doesn't add up to the WNBA players being paid more the way they should be. So that part is a little tough, but I do feel like viewership would go up if expansion happened. If you have a team in Charlotte, if you have a team in Detroit, in just bigger cities, Houston, San Antonio, like just other cities that have NBA teams or may not have NBA teams and just love basketball. Shit, if you had a team in Buffalo, if you had a team in Miami or Orlando, I feel like that would bring in more viewership because those communities will start to not only become fans of their home team, but other teams as well. You know what I mean? So I think that one is a little 50-50 because I feel like if you expand, you get more viewers, more loyal viewers at that, which causes viewership to go up, which causes marketability to go up, which in turn gets you more TV deals, which in turn gets more money to the players. So on that one, I feel like it's half and half. She also said something about benefits, which, again, I don't know much about the details of the WNBA's benefits, but based on their salary issues and charter flight issues and, just not being respected the way they should be, I'm pretty sure their benefits aren't great either. So, I'm not going to comment too much on that. That's something that should be looked at first. And something that I kind of thought of just from hearing previous WNBA players talk about it, not being penalized for going overseas. Did you guys know that players that play overseas are penalized basically for playing overseas? Because if you're not back a week or two before training camp, or if you don't make it in time for training camp, you can't play for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or some shit like that in the beginning of the season. Sometimes even you're suspended for the whole season. They have to go overseas because they don't make enough money during the WNBA season. So you're penalizing them. This is crazy. You're penalizing the WNBA players because you don't pay them enough to stay home. I think that's something simple. That's something extremely simple because the other things on here can be attested to. Oh, well, you guys aren't making enough money for us to give you this, for us to give you charter flights, or for us to raise your salaries, or for us to give you better benefits. You're not making enough money. Is that okay? No. But that's an argument that the power that be can have against the players. That, though, the penalization for playing overseas, that's like you got 2 jobs, right? You got 2 jobs because it's tough out here. The economy sucks. Inflation is through the roof and rate of pay is in the ground. And you have two jobs, and one of your bosses is like, yeah, fam, because you got this other job, I'm going to have to suspend you for 2 weeks at the beginning of every year. What? I got to suspend you for a month or 2 at the beginning of every year because you got a second job, and I don't like that. Nigga, are you stupid? Are you fucking dumb? I think that's just crazy. That's a simple thing that could be changed today. That's very simple. I get owners are probably like, well, you not being here on time for training camp, it doesn't help the team, blah, blah, blah. I get that part. But again, I'm only overseas because I don't get paid enough here. If I got paid enough here, I'd be at training camp early. I'd start training camp myself. But I don't. So I have to be overseas. And when I have an obligation to another team, I have to fulfill that obligation because they're paying me. And as long as they not treating me poorly, like you guys are, WNBA, like you guys are, I'm going to fulfill my obligation to this team that I signed on to play for because they're helping me keep my lights on. God damn it. So that's something that's more so simple. I agree with Kelsey Plum, and I understand that she probably knows more than I do because she's actually playing. She's in the WNBA. She has been for a while, and she talks to other WNBA players every day. So I agree with her, but I do feel like expansion could help fix some of these issues over time. Like, because a lot of these issues are due to the lack of money that they're making. And I think if you do expand, I feel like that could make the league more money because you're broadening your horizons to other fan bases, other basketball fan bases. Another thing too, which I kind of talked about, the biggest reason I shoot for expansion isn't just for marketing. That kind of came to me due to Kelsey Plum, but also because there's a lot of WNBA players, women basketball players that aren't in the WNBA not because they're bad or not because they're injured or anything like that. It's just due to lack of space. I did a whole video. That's part of my 2-part series. I might put the links in the description or put them at the end of this video. But if you want to check that out. But there's a lot of players that should be in the WNBA right now that aren't just because there isn't the space for it. And I think you're not only robbing them of a chance to prove themselves, but you're robbing the fans the chance of enjoying more superstars because you could be missing out on more superstars. Like in the video, I talked about like the 3rd overall pick in the last 2 or 3 drafts aren't in the NBA draft, aren't in the WNBA. You know how crazy that is? The last like 5 top 3 players in the WNBA draft, not top 3, but the last 5 3rd overall picks in the WNBA draft are not in the league right now. Not because they're bad players, but because there just isn't enough space. And I feel like expansion would not only help with marketing, but will help with building superstars, which would bring in more viewers, which will help the WNBA in the long run. I'm not saying that Kelsey Plum is wrong. I'm just saying I feel like expansion could help the points that she was making that need to be looked at. But let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Do you agree with more so what I was saying? Do you agree with Kelsey Plum? Are we both on to something? Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, make sure you ding that notification bell so you know every time I drop a video. And most of all, YouTube, I love you guys. Peace out.
It's the 3 on PLAX